Hey rockers, I am RTFX and welcome to the Launchpad Live interviews. In a time when heavy metal ruled the airwaves with bands like Iron Maiden, The Scorpions, Queensryche, and Judas Priest, Dokken took their place among the metal masters. Songs like Breaking the Chains, Heartless Heart, Into the Fire, and Unchain the Night cement the band as one of metal's greatest. I caught up with Don at his home while he was awaiting the release of The Lost Tapes, a collection of a cassette and reel-to-reel recording brought back to life. We talk about the process of recovering the lost tapes and the LA metal scene. We sit down with a legend, Don Dokken.
Hey everybody, it's Don Dokken. You're rocking on 99 WNRR. Keep rocking. This is Don. How are you?
Don, hi. This is Michael. How are you?
Good. Just kind of relaxing.
What do you do? What do you do?
Breathe.
What are you doing to relax?
Well, I work in the house a lot. Or I just sit out the patio and I just write lyrics for the new album and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I have 13 acres, so 13 acres will keep you busy a lot.
Yeah, it will.
That's a lot of land.
How have you been holding up through this whole crazy time that we've all been going through?
Well, I mean, it's like the apocalypse, man. I mean, it's bizarre, man. Beyond just the corona and everything shut down, and then the marchers, the protesters, with the George Floyd, and people looting and burning buildings down. It's just like the whole world's going down in a handbasket. So honestly, I just been staying home. I live, up in the mountains, very far away. I have no neighbors, and I just been staying home and taking this time to work on the lost tapes. Got that finished up. That took months, and we're working on a record via the internet now. It's a brand new way of recording over the internet.
Sounds like a great retirement plan for me because I can't wait to get out of the hustle and bustle and head to the mountains and kind of relax, Yeah,
I turned 67 3 days ago, and this summer was going to kind of be my last run. Go out this year and promote, whatever we had, and then I was going to start slowing down, and then the whole thing was just canceled. Everybody's in the same boat. I've talked to all my friends, and everybody from Judas Priest to Whitesnake to Motley Crue. I mean, everybody's just sitting home, and all these big tours are gone. I can understand people are frustrated, like you and me and everybody can only stay home so much and watch so much Netflix, and you're over it,
Yeah. Well, first,
I'm about ready to get out my PS3 again, start gaming again.
Yeah, it does. It always can bring that, especially making that connection with the guys and playing and stuff, that it just gives you that release to make you feel, all energized and alive.
Yeah, traveling's a pain. I have a show, actually. I have 2 shows in 3 weeks. I'm very shocked. There's 2 shows. We're playing big shows. And it's probably the first 2 shows in America that are going to be happening outdoors. They're doing social distancing. I don't know how they're going to do social distancing for thousands of people, but they say they have a plan, So we're going, and but what I'm nervous about is the 6 flights I have to take.
Yeah.
2 connections to Virginia, 2 connections to Arkansas. That's 4. 2 connections get back to New Mexico. That's 6. That's a lot of flying, a lot of high risk, but you can't, you just can't live in a closet. And I thought it was on the way out, but obviously, as you know, in America, it's like 5,000 people a day are being checked in the hospitals everywhere.
Yeah. And
so it sucks. So I get to make music, And then my other problem is, I thought, Michael, just trying to make a new record, but I'm having problems because my right hand, is paralyzed. So I can't play guitar anymore, so that's over with. And so not being able to play piano or guitar, I can't compose. So I put that burden on John Levin, and he's writing music and I'm writing lyrics. But it's been 7 months since my surgery, and they said my hand would come back, but it didn't. So I'm kind of effed.
Sorry to hear that, man. That especially for someone who's just loved to play the guitar and did it for so long. I can only imagine. I can only imagine, Don.
Yeah, I figured it out. I've been playing for 50 years. I started playing guitar at about 10 years old, and I never thought this would happen with my arm. It shouldn't have happened. I had spinal surgery, but I'm so used to picking up the guitar every day and playing my acoustic guitar when I'm just sitting around, and it's just that was always my stress release.
Yeah.
My guitar, just jam a little bit, and I had a little micro cassette recorder, and I just put ideas on tape. I have hours and hours and hours of ideas, and I was pretty shocked when I came out of surgery, and both my hands were paralyzed. My left hand came back, but my right hand, it's dead as a doornail. So it's okay, it could be worse. There's a lot of people that are struggling in life, and I look at Frankie Vanelli. I mean, he's in the hospital with stage 4 cancer, so you have to look at, I'm alive, so I guess you got to look at it that way. But, that's what gave me the time to this accident. I call it the happy accident on the lost tapes, because I had no clue I had those tapes. They've been sitting in my storage locker for probably 30 years,
That was going to be that was actually one of my first questions was, first of all, it's an amazing fan collection, and being a fan of the band since the beginning, this is a treat. So I was happy when I heard this, and I was like, wow, this really takes you back to the genesis of what was going on and what you were doing. Along, heading over to Germany. My question was, you already answered it, but these were in a vault? You kept these in a vault? In what, tapes? Were they?
No, that's not it worked. That's why, you're supposed to keep tapes in like a controlled environment, the humidity and all this crap. And for like 15 years, I had the entire Dokken catalog, which was about 150 reels of tape of our career. It was in a special place called Iron Mountain, where everybody from Hendrix to Zeppelin keep their tapes, a special place. And I was paying for it, and I thought, why am I paying for this? It's Warner Brothers. I don't own these tapes, so they own the masters. So I told them to come pick them up. And then I remember Iron Mountain, I guess they left a couple behind. There was a box. It ended up to Total Recording Studios, and he called me up. I kept thinking, where did these tapes come from? So then it kind of my memory that my friend from the studio said, you found some tapes, got your name on them, and you need to come get them. And I did, and I just threw them in the garage. That was like, I don't know, decades ago. I forgot about them. And the weird thing was, they weren't marked. They didn't say anything on them, like what the song was or when it was recorded. So the track sheets were in there, and I opened them up, and these days everybody's digital. It's all Pro Tools and all that crap. So I had to go find someone that had an actual old reel-to-reel machine so I could play them. And transfer them to a hard drive, and then it was like this trip down memory lane. I was all playing these reel-to-reel tapes, and there was like songs that were half done, and scratch vocals, and some had a drum machine on them and no real drums, and I just thought, well, I got nothing else to do. I'll just finish them up, So that's when I talked to the record company, Silver Lining, and I said, I got about 11 songs, but they're like super old, and I don't know. I didn't really know if anybody would care about what I did when I was 25 years old, But apparently everybody's really digging it, so.
It was because there's such a variety. There's something that sounds, that sounds a little bit updated. There's stuff that sounds like you just got it off a cassette tape, and almost like it was a bounce from cassette to cassette. And I think that's really what part of the treat of the release is that you're listening to like stuff that's like, this is the early stages of even growing as a songwriter.
Oh yeah, this is long before George, Jeff, and Nick, and I was by myself, and and I looked on YouTube, and there was actually some versions of these songs. I don't know how these people found them. And I thought, how did they get copies of these things? I don't have copies. But they sounded horrible, you know, like cassette, you know, like 5-generation cassette, a lot of hits. Sounded god-awful. And so I just started digging around, and yeah, some of the songs sound more punchy and more hi-fi because I redid the drums, I redid the guitars. So I just left the vocals in the song. But yeah, some of those songs were just 2 tracks, so there wasn't much I could do to it, you know, it was done. And there was all these weird accidents. For instance, my very first single I ever did in '77 was Broken Heart, Hard Rock Woman. It was a little 7-inch 45. And I didn't have a copy of it. I took like 300 copies to Germany, and 500, I sold them all. So I'm doing, like 4 months ago, I'm talking about doing this record, and I'm talking to some guy from Swedish Rock Magazine, and he goes, you know, I have that record. And I said, what are you talking about? Yeah, I have that single. My brother studied in Berlin in 1979, and he bought one of your little 45 singles. I said, you're shitting me, right? And he goes, yeah, I think I got a copy of it around here. Because there was versions on the internet that just sounded god-awful. So sure enough, he found it, and he says, now I got to find somebody that's got a record player, a little play 45, and not 33. So I thought, okay, we went to an old music store and found an old record player, and they hooked up some wires and transferred the song to our, you know, like an MP3, a wave, and he emailed it to me, and I got the original, basically the original master. So that was Broken Heart, and I went, well, you know, what a weird thing. I'm talking about this record, and I'm trying to, you know, finish it, and this guy's going, yeah, I have a copy of the original record. And I didn't have a copy of it. I asked my kids, I asked my brother, I asked my friends. Nobody had it, you know. And I took them all to Germany and sold them there. So that was a real happy accident. So, but the biggest problem was I thought this thing would take a month, you know, to throw it together. It took me like 4 months because I had to try to make everything sonically as good as possible with digital tools, and there's a special device that you could take the pops and the snits and the cracks and all that out of it digitally, and I had to do that, and you know, it was a lot of work. And then a lot of the songs I thought, well, it's a good song, but it's got this cheesy, you know, $20 drum machine on it. So I just sent over to my drummer and said, put some drums, real drums on it, let's see how it sounds, you know. That's how it kind of happened, you know.
When you were going through all these songs, because this is a very clear memory, does all of these songs, did you put yourself back at that place in time when all of these moments occurred while recording? Did you mentally go back there in time when you heard all these tracks?
Yeah, I mean, it brought back a lot of memories that I talking about. You know, like being in Germany in 1979, my first tour, I went to Germany and recording with Michael Wagner at the studio at 2:00 in the morning, and we'd play our show till midnight. And his recording studio was across the street from this club called the Sounds Club. And I remember Michael saying, hey, why don't you come over? You want to come over in the middle of the night? You're not too tired. We'll do some demos. And I said, oh, okay. I'll do some demos. Why not? You know? So I had all these memories of, you know, why I wrote that song, why I wrote that song. Like, for instance, there was a ballad on the album. I can't remember the name of the ballad, actually. But like, I met this girl in Germany while I was there for a month, and then I had to go home back to America, and I wrote a song about having to go home. You know, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh, that's that song I wrote to that girl, Bettina, because I was leaving, so I wrote this ballad. I can't remember what it's called right now. So I have the track list in front of me. But, you know, I'd forgotten about that because, you know, time goes on and 40 years goes by and, you know, we don't have it. And my memory's not good. And a couple of people said, oh, I really like that ballad on your Lost Tapes album. What's it about? I'm like, I'm not sure. You know, I can't remember what it's called. It's called, shit, I can't remember. anyway, I wrote about her, and then I went back to Germany, in 1980, and did some more demos, and the guy stole my tapes. And those demos were lost in time. That was the person stole them. So, I could have said, well, he stole them with your songs. It belongs to you. So you want to re-release them, go ahead. He put out an album in the 80s, I think, called Back on the Streets, and it was like a bunch of bootleg songs, demos. But the guy stole it. But I never thought he'd sell anything. I thought, who would care about, demos? Who would care? But then we got famous. So, all of a sudden, who cared?
That's why. What was...
when we stole them, we were nobody. Nobody knew who Dokken was. And we had a fan base of 1,000 people, So I thought, okay, this guy stole my tape. Fuck him. He'll probably sell a couple thousand records. And I find out 35 years later that the thing sold like, 250,000. We had like $1 million off of it. I went, son of a bitch. So he didn't pay me for it. And I had a lawyer finally told us cease and desist. And some of the songs on this. And then there were a few songs, to get back to your question, it was like my memory, I didn't remember where they were recorded or exactly what year. I ended up calling Juan Crucier, who's a rap bass player. And he was in Dokken. He played with me in Germany in 1979, and I called up Juan and said, you remember those demos we did in Germany? And remember that song, Hitting On? He's like, yeah, I wrote it. I said, you wrote it? I thought I wrote it. And he goes, no, I wrote it. You sang it. And we wrote the music. I wrote the lyrics. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I believe you. You say you did. You did. And he goes, yeah, I got a copy somewhere. So, I said, you have a copy of that? He goes, yeah, I got it from Michael Wagner just for fun years ago. So, again, happy accident. I called Juan, just trying to figure out what year it was recorded. And he says, yeah, I have a copy of that somewhere. So he found a good copy of it and gave it to me. Because there's versions of it on the internet, and again, it's got just cut off.
Jeez, just the process of tracking all this stuff down.
Oh my God. I mean, it was like, my biggest baffle was, how does some of these songs get on the internet? I like copies of, and I didn't even have a copy. And I'm like, I'm like, and they go, oh yeah, I've heard that song on the internet, Hit and Run. It sounds like shit, but it's on there. Sure enough, I went to YouTube, and there it was, but it sounded really, really bad. And so I thought, well, I can't release this on this record. I'm not going to do that. It's got to be better than that. And just happy luck that Juan had a copy, and he sent it to me, and I am talking and doing an interview, and he had a copy of the record, and it's bizarre. The last thing I'm looking for right now is, in 1978, I did my first video of my first single, Broken Heart, Hard Rock Woman. They're holding back Hard Rock Woman for a Japanese bonus, and we actually did a video, with my manager at the time, Greg Levin, who was a very famous guitar player in an American band called Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Yeah.
And they were very famous for that song Cherokee Nation and all, and Kicks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But he passed away, and I never had a copy of that video. So I reached out to his wife and I said, I know it's been a lot of years now since he passed away, but maybe if you have any of the stuff, maybe you have a copy of that video. I'd love to get a copy of it when I'm, a young punk skinny ass kid, on stage. I'd love to see it.
What was that like when you were told that really, if you're going to do something, you have to get on a plane? You're growing up in the streets of Cali, and you got to go to Germany, where all this stuff is happening, and all these great bands are breaking, like Priest and stuff like that, but they haven't broken the U.S. because we're still listening to disco. And they're telling you got to get on a plane to go to Germany. What did you first think?
Well, I'd never been out of the country. I'd always lived in California, and I lived in Nevada with my mom for a while. So it was a little scary, when I met this guy, Michael Boyens, who owned this club called the Sounds Club in Hamburg, and he was in LA like club hopping, get ideas about building his club. And I met him. We met by accident and started talking. And I was saying, I don't know, he was like, what's going on here in America? You know, in Germany they had Judas Priest and Saxon and Accept and, you know, and King Diamond and, you know, and in LA it was all like new wave and disco and, you know, it changed. You know, Van Halen got signed in 77. We all thought Van Halen got signed, now they're going to start signing bands. It just didn't happen. You know, Van Halen got signed, but all the clubs stopped booking hard rock. They're booking new wave and you know, Devo and the Knack and stuff like that. And I was like, and this is not where I came from. I was always into European rock. Never was into the American rock, with the exception of Van Halen, because we used to play with him a lot. So when he said, you can come to Germany, I kind of just blew it off and said, yeah, right, whatever. And he says, no, I've got a drum set, I've got amplifiers, I've got equipment, I'm a musician, you know, you can stay at my house. I know all the club owners. And we ended up playing all the same clubs the Beatles played. So it was kind of like we did the same thing. A lot of people don't realize before the Beatles made it, they were going to Germany and playing the Reeperbahn and all these clubs, you know. We played the same clubs, the Star Club, the Top Ten, Chicago. Those are all the clubs the Beatles were playing at before they made it, before they had a record deal.
You mentioned, you know, all the bands in Europe. In your opinion, because this is what I think, but I want to know what your opinion is. Do you really do you think that that's where really the heart of metal is? Really, in you know, in the streets over there, you know, Sabbath, you know, Zeppelin, Priest, Maiden.
Yes, I mean they talk about the hard rock scene and the Sunset Strip and all that, and I go, you know, all these videos, documentaries, and I'm like, that's not really the truth, in my opinion, because, you know, I already had a record deal by 1981, and the bands like Poison and all those bands came along afterwards, you know, and then it was all about hair and big hair and makeup and fancy clothes, and, you know, that came along in the mid-'80s. I mean, Winger and all those bands, they didn't come around to the late '80s, and people don't remember that, you know, and I just wasn't into that, you know. I was always, I think the thing that got me going was I bought a record called Sad Wings of Destiny by Judas Priest. Mm-hmm. And it just blew my mind. It just blew my fucking mind. You know, who was this band? And it was so funny that they had the same problem. I saw Judas Priest like 2 years later, and they were playing the Whiskey a Go-Go for 500 people. And I saw Saxon, and I saw Accept. They weren't big in America. They were just starting out, you know. They were popular in Europe, but I remember going to see them in a 1,000-seater. They weren't anybody. You know, they just weren't known here. But I was a fan, so, and I told people, shit, man, I've been listening to this band for 3 years, you know. And Y&T, they came out of the Bay Area, and then they came down to LA and tried to get their start. And so it was a strange time, you know. People have these documentaries about the hard rock metal scene, 80s, the classic metal days of Hollywood. I'm like, no, I don't agree with that. I was there because I'm old. And, you know, the metal scene started in Europe. You know, look at Accept. Balls to the Wall came out like, in like 79.
Yeah, I mean, and the Scorps as well.
The Scorpions born in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know that? They were actually around in the 60s.
I never considered, you know, even growing up, and you know, obviously the first thing I ever bought was Breaking the Chains, and then picked up Tooth and Nail. I never considered the band to be part of that hair band. To me, there was always especially with you know, in Tooth and Nail, I always considered the band to be closer to the Scorpions, you know, Priest, Maiden. I always considered Dokken to be around that genre, which is why that band is so close to, you know, my heart growing up. I never considered it at all to be a hair metal band at all. You guys were too hard.
Thank you for that. Because that's when I heard that, you know, they categorize you. Because we tried to like get in the, you know, in line, start wearing more fancy clothes, and spandex and like Under Lock and Key. I look at that album cover, I just want to vomit. All these clothes they made for us. We look so stupid. I remember our manager, he was managing Metallica as well, and he said, why don't you guys just wear your leather jacket and your jeans and boots like y'all was wearing on when you're riding your motorcycle? And I said, well, everybody's doing the whole fashion thing, and we thought we needed to get in line. But my influences were from Europe. So you can hear it in our songs, and I hate it when they call us a hair band because, songs like Kiss of Death, Tooth and Nail, Paris is Burning, When Heaven Comes Down, there's a ton of songs. We're a heavy band, but, we had to do the most commercial song to get on the radio and get on MTV. So we did songs like In My Dreams and It's Not Love and Just Got Lucky, and those were the more pop songs, So that kind of what established us as a, rock band, not a heavy rock band. But we were kind of schizophrenic, I think. You look just to a Dokken album, listen to In My Dreams, and then there's When Heaven Comes Down. It's like totally opposite ends of the earth. Heavy and light.
Yeah, and even the difference. Heartless Heart. I look at tracks like I love the deep cuts. I love Heartless Heart. Off of two. To me, that was that album to me was the true sound of the band. That's a heavy record. When you look at the landscape.
Yeah, we're still sticking to our guns, on being heavy as possible. But we had to fight the record company. They're like, we need a commercial hit song, and if you look at MTV, everybody's putting out a ballad,
Yep. I have to ask.
So they wanted us to be like that because that was what MTV was doing. And MTV in America ruled the world. Every kid got out of high school. I've talked to a million fans and they'd say, I used to get out of school at 3:30 and we'd all just run home to watch MTV. And they said if you waited for 45 minutes, you'd see a Dokken video. So we, and respect to George, Lynch always wanted to put out the heavier stuff, as a video. He wanted to put out like Heaven Comes Down or Heartless Heart or, Paris is Burning, Tooth and Nail, and the record company goes, no, we're going to take the most, quote unquote, I hate this word, commercial song. So that kind of stigmatized us in the 90s that we were just a Hollywood rock band. But luckily for us, our hardcore fans knew that, no, Dokken was a heavy band. They're a hard rock band. We're not metal. I don't even know what metal meant. It fractured out, When Metallica came out, all of a sudden it was like there was metal, speed metal, thrash metal, punk metal, dirge metal, death metal. It was like there's a whole, everybody started categorizing everybody. King Diamond was doom metal, and Seth was metal, and Slayer was thrash metal. It's like it just starts splitting up all these categories. And I'm like, it's just music, guys.
Amen. Amen to that, because that's I've been preaching that for as long as I can remember. Is that it's we start hurting the total scene when we start making all these factions, when you make factions, you make fractions, and that's been part of the problem. But I'm glad that the band stayed true to their guns through the career.
And I think that's what hurt a lot of the LA bands, because the Poisons came along with huge hair and shitloads of makeup and frilly clothes. And I remember on Under Lock and Key, those clothes we wear. Mick was purple, I was blue, George was red. I remember we wore those clothes. It cost us a ton of money. We went to a guy that was doing Judas Priest clothes, and we did these outfits, and we literally wore them for one show, our first show on Aerosmith, and I said, fuck this. I can't move around. I look like an idiot. I hate it. I can't stand these clothes. And we literally spent thousands and thousands of dollars on clothes, and I don't think we ever wore them again. We went for like 1 or 2 shows. That's it. And I finally said, "Fuck it," and I just put my leather jacket on, that I wore when I ride my bike. And put on some leather pants and my biker boots and said, "Fuck it," Don't like it? Don't like it. It's about the music. But I will admit that we kind of got pulled into that image trap of the good-looking singers. I had a baby face. I admit it. Everybody knows I had a baby face. So here I was, older than these guys like Sebastian Bach and the Tommy Lees and the Bret Michaels. And those guys were in their early 20s, and I was just turning 30. I was the old guy. But I had a baby face to get away with it.
But there was always something about, your persona and the band's persona that was always, classy in a way, regal in some respects, that, it wasn't cheap. You know what I mean? I think that's another thing that differentiated you guys from everybody, because it did not look like a cheap, a cheap imitation of an imitation. There was an air of class about the band, which rocked hard.
I think that's a good way of putting it. We weren't cheap. You look back in the 80s, and all these bands were touring and starting to get famous, Rat and Motley and the Poison came on the scene. But if you look at our tour track record, we were touring with Judas Priest, AC/DC, Van Halen, Scorpions, Metallica opened up for us. Monsters of Rock, they were under us. We always toured with the heavy bands because we could pull it off because we had the heavy songs. We weren't doing the Hollywood, quote-unquote, MTV tours, I call them. Yeah. And so that did set us apart, and God bless us that here I am talking to you today in the year 2020. I just turned 67 2 days ago, and we still have a career.
I have to ask this now. Would there possibly be a second one of these, another lost tape? You said something over 100 different songs that you were able to, that you have, and that you were able to unearth some. Could we possibly see a run of these?
No.
Darn.
I took what I had. I mean, literally, it took me months just to hunt down the versions on this new album and the retro tape, just to hunt down a high-quality version of it, the best I could find. And I literally, on the song Hit and Run, it was on the internet, but it was wobbly, it was out of phase, it was all fucked up. And I spent a month just trying to make the thing sound respectable, and that's all I got. There's nothing left, I mean, as far as any leftover songs or songs that were incomplete, I don't think there's anything left. I mean, it's just, and if there is, I don't know about it. As you know, when bands write an album, you don't just go, okay, the album will hold 38 minutes you can put on a record. So you could only put 11 songs on a record. That was the max. Until the CDs came out, when you could put an hour and a half. But back in the days when making records, you could only fit, 5 songs a side. That's it. There was no more room. Mm-hmm. So we would write, 11, 12, 13, 14 songs, and just, we'd all sit down and say, our A&R first record company would pick the 10 best, the 11 best. And so the rest of those songs, I don't know where they went. They're just gone in the wind. They're just gone in time,
This is... because I think this is how I want to listen to this. Now, of course, I've already heard the track, pre-heard the track, but how I really want to sit down and listen to this is a vinyl version. Please tell me there's going to be vinyl of this.
Yes, it is. It's coming out in vinyl next month.
Yes. To me, that's to me how I want to experience this as a fan. And for, like I said, this is a fan's package. You can tell by the care that it's been put into it. This is a fan's package. So I think that everyone's going to just absolutely enjoy it. And I want to enjoy it on vinyl. That's how I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, and experience, it's a ritual. I love, sometimes at night, I have my turntable, and I have a very large record collection, and I just love I call it the ritual of You know, taking the record, dusting it off, putting it on the turntable, dropping the needle, and just putting it on my headphones or speakers and just sitting back and enjoy it, you know? So they're putting it out on vinyl, which I'm very happy about. The other Dokken albums have all been released on vinyl now. That was a bitch, though, because on vinyl, you want to put it out in what they call 44K, which is audiophile. And I'm like, how in the hell am I going to make these songs audiophile? Because audiophile hadn't even been invented until 1991. So we had to run it through converters and software and all this digital processing to make it possible for the record to come out in audiophile for an actual album. It was a lot of work, I have to tell you.
And, well, that's actually a
You're
little...
hardcore.
What was that?
And that was kind of like the people like you. You want to hear it on a fucking album like it was, you know?
Well,
and, you know,
yeah.
I don't care. Some people don't. I remember my daughter was 10 in college. She put a CD in, and she had about, I'll never forget it, and she had about like 30 songs on one CD. And I thought, how in the fuck did you get all those on the CD? Well, she would download them at the lowest sample rate. You know, remember on iTunes you had good, best, and better.
Yeah.
And she would download them as small a file as possible. And she's playing these songs she liked, and I knew them. I said, Jessica, this stuff sounds like shit. Sounds like crap. You know, you can't hear the bass, you can't hear the guitar. It's all vocal. I go, it just sounds terrible. But she didn't care. She just wanted to hear the song and as many songs as we could on a CD. And I told her, I said, you know, sweetie, we busted our ass, and we would mix our records for a month to try to make it as perfect, as punchy, as loud as possible, and as bitchin' as possible. I busted my ass to make our record sound good. And this is what kids are doing now, just downloading a bullshit copy of it. I go, it was depressing. And there's a small, I guess you call it niche, like you want to listen to it on vinyl. You want to hear it in its glory. You want to hear it as sonically bitchin' as possible. But that's a very small fan club, it seems, you know?
I just want to listen to that's how it was intended to be heard. Obviously, you know, when you were in this process, you know, they were put together with the notion that these were going on vinyl. No one knew of any, you know, 192, you know, K bit rate and stuff like this that was going to happen years later on. But between the warm tones and the punch, like you mentioned, you knew exactly how it was going to translate to vinyl, which is where it should be and how it should be absorbed.
Correct. It was all made for vinyl. I remember a couple years ago, it was been 4 years, but about 4 years now, that, you know, Jimmy Page took all the Zeppelin albums and went back in the studio with all the masters and remixed them for vinyl. And it took him about a year, he said. And I bought it, you know, the Zeppelin vinyl collection remixed, and it sounds amazing. It's just amazing, you know, and Jimmy wanted to do it, you know, so he spent a year, he said, just trying to make the records sound like it did when they did it back in the 70s and 60s. And I respect that stuff, you know. Jimmy Page spent a lot of time on that Zeppelin reissue vinyl record, and he didn't even want to come out on CD, he said. He goes, it defeats the purpose. But he did, and so, yeah. And it's interesting, when I hear all these songs on this Lost Tapes, all of a sudden my brain was jogged about, you know, when I wrote it, why I wrote it, who was it about. Oh, I remember the song. It was called Goodbye, My Friend. That was what it was. I think, you know, something like that. I think it was called the ballad. And then I remember, and then I called Juan. He's got a better memory. I had to call Michael Wagner, who did all the demos and did all our Dokken albums. And I'm like, what year was this? What year was that? And where did we do it at? And did I write it on the spot? And he goes, yeah, you just came in the studio one night and you wrote Felony. You just sat down and started jamming, and I just rolled the tape and you did it. And I went, oh, okay. So it was like a trip down memory lane for sure. definitely a trip down memory lane.
Wow.
But, and then the problem was there are 3 songs on the record, I think, that had a drum machine on them, and it just wasn't acceptable. So I had BJ, my drummer, put drums on them, and John redid the guitars, and it sounded too good. And I actually had to unmix the song, like try to get my head back in the way we used to mix things back in the day. I had to unmix it because it sounded too bastard child hi-fi on the record. I go, This sounds great, but it sounds like I just wrote it, 2 months ago. It sounds too punchy. So I literally had to unmix it and try to make it fit with all these other songs, like you said, like Broken Heart. You can tell it's a 45 single, and it's a little hissy, and the bass was shy, and I just had to make them the best I could. But I had to kind of unmix a couple of the songs.
Mm-hmm. As a songwriter, I got one more for you, and I'll let you go. As a songwriter, I mean, you've written hundreds of songs, prolific songwriter. When you look back at the span of your career, what was that moment in time that you could sit there, kind of shuck yourself on the shoulder and say, yeah, this was a good collection?
Well, I don't know if I've ever, listened to my whole anthology, because it's a lot of songs.
Yes, it is.
But I remember, I just have memories of songs that are my favorite. Honestly, my most favorite songs, it seemed like I wrote them in like 45 minutes. It just, I don't want to get too woolly on you, but they were more like a spiritual intervention from the cosmos or something. I remember when I wrote In My Dreams, I was sitting on a beach in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico on vacation. My acoustic guitar, I had a magazine and a pen, and I was playing my guitar, and I came up with the riff In My Dreams, and I ran back to my little apartment and grabbed a pen and paper, went back to the beach, and started writing the lyrics down to In My Dreams, and had the riff, and the song was done in 45 minutes. Done. And that was one of our biggest hits.
Wow.
And I remember some songs we spent a month on, redoing it, changing it, fixing it, changing the lyrics, changing everything, trying to make it better. And those songs weren't great talking songs, in my opinion. There's an old saying, you can't turn shit into ice cream.
That's true.
I'm serious. I mean, the band would go, you got the same song, people don't know that, the whole George Lynch, Don Dokken tension made for good music. I never wrote a song with George Lynch in my life. I wrote alone in my little apartment. Before I got famous and had any money, I just had a tiny little apartment. It was barely big enough for my bed to fit in there. And I had a little 8-track recording studio on my coffee table, but it was mostly Jeff, Nick, and George had a house already, and they wrote together, the 3 of them. And I wrote by myself. They wrote together, I wrote by myself. Because George and I couldn't seem to write together, because I'd say left and he'd say right, and he'd say do this, and I'd say no, should go that way, and it was just too frustrating. So, granted, I wrote most of the things, Into the Fire, The Hunter, In My Dreams. Alone Again, I wrote the original version when I was 24, and that got lost in time. Alone Again was on a cassette in my closet, and I remember Vanilla was coming out, and all these bands were on MTV doing ballads. Def Leppard, Sebastian Bach, Home Sweet Home, everybody was doing a ballad. And that was the flavor of the week. And the record company said, you don't have any ballads on your record. And I went, I didn't think about it. No. So I'm like, oh, shit. And they go, we need a ballad. So I went, all right. So I really, literally, hand to God, found this cassette, and it said, I'm alone again without you. And I put it on my cassette player, and I went, Oh, yeah, I remember that song. And I'd written it like years and years before it came out, like in the 70s. So Jeff and I actually listened to it, and we kind of rewrote it and fixed it up. We kept the chorus alone again, and kept the guitar riff, and redid it, you know. And I wrote it in probably 1976, and I think it came out in 85. So, you know, it's just a cassette I found in my closet for all these demos, you know. So, you never know. But I knew, here it was, you know, 10 years later, when I heard the song Alone Again, I thought, wow, that's a really good song. It really picked the chorus. I really liked it, you know. So, I've always said to people, you know, how do you feel about your career and your catalog? And I say, you know, I guess we can say it was talent, but I really still will stick to my guns and say a lot of it was luck. The right time, at the right place, the right time in my life. You know, when I sang background vocals on the Scorpions album on Blackout, I just happened to be in Germany, and I met Peter Dirks, their producer, and Klaus had problems with his voice, and he asked me if I wanted to sing backgrounds because my vibrato was similar, and I'm like, singing a Scorpions album? Hell yeah. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, just, hell yeah. And if I wouldn't have done that...
Hello.
And I said, well, you know, you're going to pay me? And he goes, well, let's use the studio for 3 days for doing it. So Michael Wagner and I cranked out 3 of my songs, and Gabby Halka, who is still the manager of Accept, was married to Wolf, she took that little demo of mine of 3 songs to Hamburg. They got me my first record deal on Cool Air Records. So if I wouldn't have done the Scorpions, I wouldn't have been in Germany. If Gabby hadn't been there working on the Russian Roulette album with Accept, I probably wouldn't have got a record deal. You know, honestly, I probably would have came back to LA and went back to working as a cook, you know.
God. Wow. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess, you know, being in the right place, the right time, and luck does have to play along with, you know, well, I mean, obviously being amazingly talented as a group and as a songwriter. I mean, yeah, but yeah, a little bit of luck does help.
There's got to be a little bit of luck, you know. And I was hoping that, you know, that when people hear this record, they'll see my state of mind where I was, naive, didn't know shit about a recording studio, just writing songs from my heart. And you can tell I was very influenced by European music on some of those songs. They're very Euro. You know, you can tell some of those songs are just like,
oh yeah,
like that song, Hard Rock. It's like, you know, a little Robin Trower in there. There's a little, you know, a lot of because I was in my 20s, I was from the 60s, listening to, you know, I was always listening to bands that I knew about. Like I said, I wore that Judas Priest album out. And then I bought an album called Saxon. And everybody goes, who in the hell is Saxon? And I said, oh man, you got to check this band out. They're great, you know. I really wasn't into, no offense to these bands, they were great. But I wasn't going down that path of Journey and all that kind of, the Journey era, I call it. Journey came out and they were huge. And when Van Halen came out, and I played many shows with Van Halen in Hollywood, I remember seeing them and thought, it's a done deal. These guys are going to be huge. Because, in my opinion, Eddie Van Halen changed the face of rock and roll. He changed everything. You know, the way he played guitar and all that. He just changed the whole scene. Before that, if you watch Woodstock, now, you see people kind of just standing there singing, right? They're just standing there singing, you know, and playing guitar. And then you watch Van Halen, and he got Crazy Diggity Rock, jumping around like a madman. You know, he changed it all. You know, and Eddie Van Halen. Oh, they influenced me a lot, Van Halen.
I mean, they did bring the show. I mean, that's one thing about that band. They upped the ante. They made every band from a performance standpoint definitely up the ante. Yeah,
it was all about David's performance. He was very gregarious. and very flamboyant. And I wasn't used to seeing that. I was used to seeing guitar player, singer like Dave Metachetti or something like that. You know, you went on your mic and you play guitar and you sit there and sing. And that's what I did. I remember the record company telling me, you need to be more like David Lee Roth. And I said, are you out of your freaking mind? I can't do a backflip on stage. I can't kick my leg above my head. It's not my thing, you know. I get on the microphone, I focus on the lyrics, I focus on the passion, I try to deliver a good vocal performance and make all the words believable. I'm not David Lee Roth. And everybody followed suit trying to be David Lee Roth. And I said, this is not what I do. And I told the record company after the first album came out, it was Breaking the Chains. We went on tour with Blue Oyster Cult and Y&T. And we were the opening band. We had a 35-minute set. And they were saying to Don, can you jump around a lot more? And can you move around the stage? And can you run around? And can you do a flip and a backflip? And I'm like, no, I'll break my fucking neck. You know? And they were like, aren't you in the martial arts? Because I was in the martial arts by then. I studied martial arts for 25 years. I said, but how am I supposed to sing when I'm doing a backflip? I go, it's not what I do. It's not what I do.
And it's not exactly the kind of music you're going to do martial arts to. You know, there's something.
And that's what Taylor does.
You know, oh God, it's like you know when you tell me that, Don, it's like these guys. Did they ever see you on stage? Did they see how you work the stage? That's your thing, the way you do it. Oh my God.
Yeah, I had my own thing.
Exactly.
It was so funny because remember when Van Halen got back together and they did the Jimmy Kimmel show in America and they played down in New York in Times Square and David comes out spinning this baton around, nunchuck. And he's spinning this thing around, and he's being really, you know, over the top with martial art moves. And the song's starting, and what did he do? He broke his nose. He hit himself in the face and broke his fucking nose. Remember that?
I remember that. No, I was watching that. I remember that. And he's like, "What's the piece of tape on?" And then all of a sudden, no, you got to check out the video that someone released beforehand. That he was literally in the rehearsal messing around and whack with.
Broke his fucking nose, and then, you know, Eddie just starts looking like, what's going on? And Eddie's just jamming Eddie's jamming a solo while Dave was off the side of the stage getting his nose bandaged up. And I thought, I almost beat my pants laughing, you know.
It takes me back. It does take me back. This whole conversation has taken me back. The 14-year-old just came back out of me, Don. Thank you.
Thank you for everything. And I hope you like the record, and I'll make sure that Rod Kukla from Silverline Records gets everybody a copy of the vinyl. Because we're only putting out, I think, 2,500. That's it.
Oh, all right. Then I got to go put that email in and say definitely hold me a copy.
Yeah, say hold me a copy, bud. So yeah, 2,500 is not a lot for the whole world.
I hear you. Okay. Don, thank you so much again. This has been an absolute pleasure for me. Thank you, and I wish you all the healing and to get well really, really soon.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay positive. It's been 7 months. My whole arm actually is paralyzed, but they said it could take a year, maybe a year and a half, and I'm just like, okay, I just have to be patient. But I got to tell you, not being able to play guitar, drive a car, hold a pen, hold my fork, it's been a very stressful time after my surgery. And the only thing that really keeps me happy is I go in my little studio and I just write lyrics. I just got a microphone and I can't type anymore, so I just get a microphone and I speak into a microphone and do my lyrics, write my music, and it's the only thing that keeps me going every day.
And you know what? I'll let you in on something I don't usually talk about, but since we're on this subject, I myself have been battling leukemia for 5 years. So believe me, I understand about the blessings each day, and you know, making the most of each moment. So I appreciate your respect.
Yeah,
I appreciate your respect for that.
And you get that, you know. I mean, you've been through it, so you know. And
Yeah.
And even when you get better, you feel like shit, you know?
Yeah, that's the that's the cycle, sir. That is absolutely the cycle. What happens for sure.
We just have this innate DNA that we want to live, you know? So we fight it with chemo or medicine or antibiotics or whatever whose person's health problem is. You know, I will always hold the drummer in Def Leppard in very, very high regard. But he lost an arm and came back and he's playing drums. I thought, he is the poster child for anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was pretty much one of the first inspirational stories, I think, you know, when we heard that happened. And, you know, I think you think, what am I going to do now? You know, especially, and I grew up as a drummer. So, I mean, you know, I saw that and I said, like, how dare I ever complain about a damn thing I go through, you know? It
was amazing. And I was just so, because I had the same managers at the time, and I remember the accident, and they called me, and I said, and I thought, okay, he lost an arm, it's over. It's good. He's good, you know? And when they said we're going to figure out a way to stay in the band, God bless the other band members. And then you got the Vivian Campbell. He had cancer.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, damn, man, everybody's had a tough time. And I just feel so terrible. Francis and Scorpions, you know, the bass player, he's going through cancer treatment.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to look at myself and say, okay, I lost my arm, it's paralyzed, but it could be a lot worse. So I'm grateful that I'm going to be going out in 3 weeks to play the show.
To play,
and the whole world should be watching. The whole world should be watching that show.
I can't wait.
This will be the first large outdoor festival with thousands of people, and they're going to see how it goes. But from what I hear, they're going to take every single person's temperature going in. If your temperature's up, you can't get in. They're doing social distancing on a 10,000-seater field. Everybody has to be 8 feet away from each other. They're checking the crews. They're checking me. They're checking everybody. And they're being really proactive because they want to be the poster child to say, we pulled off a concert with thousands of people, nobody got COVID. So if that happens, there'll be other shows. All right, buddy, I got back. I think I called me. Take care, buddy.
All right, Don, take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, everybody, it's Don Dokken. You're rocking on 99 WNRR. Keep rocking.